Costanza, first of all, these three recognitions, just very briefly, you summarized them very nicely, so I'm not going to elaborate them, but just in case anyone here is not familiar with these three recognitions, that they're all recognitions of the nature of awareness. First of all, awareness is the witness of experience, and the analogy that I use for this is like the sun illuminating the earth. The sun is that which illuminates or knows the earth. Consciousness witnesses or knows experience. The second, awareness is not just the witness of experience, it's also the medium, the space within which all experience arises. So here we use the analogy of space, like if experience is the clouds, awareness is the sky. And then the third, awareness is not just the witness of experience, not just the space in which experience arises, but is the very stuff out of which experience is made. So the analogy here is more like the ocean, where the waves and the currents are actually made out of the ocean itself. So these are three analogies that correspond to the three stages of understanding. I am the witness of experience. I am the space in which experience appears. I am one with experience. So the first two, the reason why it's easier, or relatively easy to understand, I am the witness of experience, and indeed I am the space in which all experience arises, is that neither of these two recognitions contradict the evidence of sense perception. You can still believe that the world out there is made out of matter and understand that you witness it. So the understanding that you are the witness of your experience is not a profound challenge to your worldview. It's just noticing, yes, I witness the world. It's a very gentle introduction to your true nature. It's not shaking your world yet. Then, and it certainly doesn't contradict what your senses tell you, namely that the world is outside of yourself, made out of something other than yourself, namely matter. You can still maintain that worldview and understand, I am the witness of the world. The second recognition, I am the space in which everything experiences. Again, it's a bit more of a stretch. It involves being open to the possibility that awareness extends beyond the limits of the body and encompasses everything. And indeed, it is our experience that our experience of the world appears in awareness. It's a bit more of a challenge, but it doesn't contradict the evidence of sense perception. The world still appears to be outside, but we now understand it's all contained within awareness. But the last recognition that the world is made of awareness, is one with awareness, is an appearance of awareness, that contradicts the evidence of sense perception. And that's a real challenge to our worldview. It completely shatters our conventional materialistic view of the world. It's much more difficult. And indeed, even when we have this feeling understanding, sense perception still goes on presenting the world as if it were outside of us. So sense perception doesn't change. Our understanding overrides the apparent evidence of sense perception, but it doesn't change our sense perceptions. So that's why it's much more, this third possibility is much more radical, and it seems actually to contradict. It does contradict the evidence of sense perception. It's much more difficult. So you have to override, your understanding has to override the evidence of sense perception. Sense perception tells us the world is outside of ourselves, separate from ourselves, made out of something other than ourselves. Your understanding has to override that. When you dream that you are walking through the streets of Paris, the streets of Paris, from the point of view of the person you seem to be in your dream, seem to be outside of yourself, separate from yourself, made out of something other than yourself. Then you wake up in the morning And you understand that although it appeared like that, that is not the case. Your understanding overrides the evidence of sense perception in the dream. Well, now your understanding has to override the evidence of sense perception in the waking state.
Yeah, and how can I override it if when I try to do it, I feel like a big fear that it's pulling me back?
That's very good. You feel a big fear is because the outside world and the inside self arise and fall together. They're deeply connected. So when your vision of the outside world is shaken, what's really happening is that your vision of your inside self, the self that you believe yourself to be, is being shaken. So although you may think, oh, my vision of the world is being shaken, it's your fundamental identity that's being shaken. The separate self, your separate identity, is thinking, if my vision of the world is dismantled, I will die. And that's why you feel fear. It's very good that you feel fear. It shows how deeply this understanding is going into you. It's shaking the very core of your identity. That's very good. It's not comfortable, but it's very good. Don't worry about it. Stay tuned. Think about your knowledge of yourself as a person.
Yes.
For instance, your experience of your body. Mm-hmm. We perceive our body in the same way that we perceive our world, the same way that we perceive the world. In other words, we perceive the world through the lens of seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. And let's just call that perception. And our limited perceptions confer their own limitations on reality and make it appear as the world that we know. But exactly the same is true of the body. So the body that we perceive is not the real body. It's just the way the real body appears to our limited sense perceptions. So just as what appears in this approach, what appears to us, we consider that what appears to us as the world is in fact the activity of consciousness when viewed through the limitation, the activity of infinite consciousness. When viewed through the limitations of sense perceptions, it appears as the world. What we view as the body would be the activity of our finite mind, not the universal consciousness, but how our finite mind appears to us when we view it through our perceiving faculties. In other words, what William Blake said, the body is that portion of the mind that is discernible to the five senses. So just as when we look at the world, what we're really looking at is, in religious terms, God's ideas, the activity of infinite consciousness. It just appears as a material world because we view it through the lens of perception. Exactly the same must be true of our body. But our body is not the activity of infinite consciousness. It's how the activity of the finite mind appears when viewed through the same lens of perception. So really our body is an illusion, just as the world is an illusion. That doesn't mean it's not real, but it means it's not what it appears to be. And we all know this. Close your eyes now and imagine that you have never seen, heard, touched, tasted, or smelt your body. In other words, imagine that you've never had you've never had the sight, sound, taste, texture, or smell of the body. But now, now ask yourself, what is my experience of myself now? Don't refer to a sight, sound, taste, texture, or smell. What is your experience of yourself? There is some tingling sensation present, yes? Are you all experiencing some tingling sensation? But imagine that you had never seen or heard or tasted or smelt or touched the body. Try to describe that sensation. How would you describe that sensation? Try to describe it. Do your best with words. Keep your eyes closed and try to describe the sensation that you later will conceptualize as your body. What does it actually feel like? Not from the outside, not when perceived through the lens of perception, but how it feels from the inside. Try to use words.
What you said, it's just sensation of sorts.
Does it have a shape?
No.
Does it have a size?
No.
Does it have an age?
No.
Does it have a gender?
No.
Does it have a color?
No.
Does it have a...
No.
If you were to...
It doesn't.
If you were to... imagine you're keep your eyes closed, stay with the sensation. Imagine someone comes to you. They've never experienced a sensation before. You're going to try to describe to them what a sensation feels like. You can only use metaphors and analogies. How would you try to describe it? What adjectives would you use?
A variation of movement.
Yes, it's in motion. Something is in motion.
Something is in motion. Something is moving. Something is tingling,
pulsating.
Tingling. There's some sort of more or less intensity to it, maybe.
Yes, it's throbbing.
Yes.
Intense, less intense. Okay, now keep your eyes closed. Imagine you could take a snapshot. This is the iPhone 37 Pro Max. You can take a snapshot of this, a magical iPhone. You can take a snapshot of the sensation. Yeah. Okay, now open your eyes. Now you take a snapshot of your body as you perceive it. You put these two images side by side. Would they look anything like each other? No. What would the sensation? It would just look like this, like a puff of smoke. Yeah. I have these two beautiful images on my mantelpiece at home in Oxford. They were both taken by my sister when we spread the ashes of my father 6 months ago and my mother earlier this year, and we went out into the forest, and we all took some of my mother's and previously my father's ashes, and we just threw them up into, it was a windy day, we just threw them up into the air, and she took a picture of it. And then printed them both. So I have these two images of these vaporous forms in the forest. They're so beautiful. That is a clearer representation of my mother and father's body than was their physical body that I perceived, because that's closer to how they experienced their body, and their experience of their body must be the true experience. I only see their body from a distance through the lens of perception, but they experience their body as it is from the inside, and it corresponded more with these two beautiful images of the ashes in the forest. So what we perceive of the physical body is just that the mind's very limited, distorted view of what the body really is. As William Blake said, the body is just that portion of the soul, that was the word for the mind in those days, just that portion of the mind that is registered by our senses. But the real body is much more than just the physical body. That's why when somebody treats you like a physical body, something in you rebels. You do not like to be treated by anyone like a body, because you know that you're not just the image of the body. You know, everybody knows there's so much more than that, and to be treated like a physical body is a violation of what we truly are. We all feel that. So sorry, I've gone on a bit of a tangent. I'm trying to explore this idea of alternative ways of seeing not just the world, but of seeing who we are. Could we see ourselves in different ways, in different timelines? Yes, that the fixed view of, just as the fixed view of the world can begin to crumble when our perceiving faculties are expanded, so our fixed view of ourself as the body can begin to lose its solidity and its density and its as the mind expands. So I think there's some truth. I don't know enough about what scientists refer to as alternative realities or parallel universes to say for sure whether this is what they're talking about, but I think it's certainly possible.
Yes.
So my answer to your question is yes, that It's possible to see the world and the body in different ways that don't conform to our idea of time and space. Yes.
Thank you. That's helpful.
I have a question about what you said to Pam just 5 minutes ago. I think you said something that the world is the result of infinite consciousness and my body is the result of my mind or something.
Yes.
You didn't say the result, but you made a distinguishing. Can you explain why?
Yes. Okay. So let's go back to the model that I've suggested of infinite consciousness, is the whole, the one reality, vibrating within itself, but it can't know itself directly. The infinite, it can't know manifestation directly. The infinite cannot know the finite. In order to know its manifestation in form, it must localize itself as the finite mind. That's what each of us is, an apparent localization of infinite consciousness. So here we have infinite consciousness with all these localized finite minds within it. That's all of us. So when a finite mind, or rather when infinite consciousness through the faculty of a finite mind looks back at itself, it's looking back, it's looking out through the eyes of the finite mind at the activity of itself, the activity of infinite consciousness. Are you with me? So the universe, under this theory, the universe is what the activity of infinite consciousness looks like from the localized perspective of a finite mind. Now, what about the activity of the finite mind? What does that look like? The body. So the activity of infinite consciousness looks like the world. Each of us, if you all close your eyes, and you don't have to do it, but if you close your eyes now, you don't experience yourself as a body, you experience yourself as mind, thoughts, sensation, perception, you don't experience a physical body. You close your eyes, this was the first experience you'd ever had. You'd have no idea that you were a physical body. You would just think you were a bundle of mind, thinking, feeling, imagining, sensing. It would all be mind. From the inside, we experience ourselves as mind. But it's only when this bundle of mind, this bundle of thinking, feeling, sensing, and perceiving that we know ourselves to be from the inside, is viewed from the outside, that it appears as a body. When I look at you, I don't see a bundle. When you close your eyes, you feel a bundle of thinking, feeling, sensing, and perceiving. But when I look at that bundle of thinking, feeling, sensing, and perceiving, I don't see mind. I see matter. I see a body. That's what your bundle of mind looks like from my point of view. When I close my eyes, I experience myself as thinking, feeling, sensing, and perceiving. But you don't see that. When you look at this bundle of thinking, feeling, sensing, and perceiving, you see a body. So the body is how the finite mind appears from a second person point of view. Just as the universe is how the activity of infinite consciousness appears from a second person point of view.
But isn't the mind and the body also the activity of infinite consciousness?
It is. Yes. So what I call the finite mind is the localized activity of infinite consciousness. Ultimately, it's the activity of infinite consciousness. But I'm referring to it as the finite mind. Yes, of course, it's all the activity of infinite consciousness, but it's the activity of the localized infinite consciousness. That's what I call the finite mind. But yes, it's also the activity of infinite consciousness, of course. But it's localized. The universe is how the unlocalized activity of consciousness looks like. The body is how the localized activity of consciousness looks like. I call the localized activity of consciousness, I call that the finite mind. In this conversation, we're talking much more philosophically. We're not talking about practical things like eating and exercising and sleeping. And we're being much more philosophical about the nature, the ultimate nature of the body. So in this conversation, I make far fewer concessions. I don't concede that there is a physical body that is like a temple that we should look after well and feed well and exercise well. That's a different. Here we're being much more philosophical. We're talking about the essential nature of the body, what it really is. And so we don't concede ultimately that there is a physical body. We don't concede that there is any physical substance. It's all consciousness. The ultimate reality is consciousness, not matter. So that must mean that the ultimate reality of the body, what we feel to be this solid, dense body, what it really is at the deepest level, must just be pure consciousness, if non-duality is correct. So what we're trying to do here is not just say glibly, well, everything is consciousness. Okay, but what do you mean my body is consciousness? We're really trying to, both philosophically and experientially, trying to understand and feel the body, and indeed the world, in a way that is consistent with this paradigm of unity. There is one reality whose nature is consciousness or spirit or love. How could we understand and feel the body in a way that is consistent with, that doesn't contradict that premise, that the paradigm of unity, of oneness? Some people are not interested in these more speculative conversations, more philosophical, parallel realities, and that's fine. In Buddhism, for instance, they tend not to go there, because it's speculative, it's philosophical, it's not essential. Some of the conversations we've had this afternoon, it's not. Some of you I know are really interested in these matters and find these conversations not just interesting but essential. Your mind just will not rest until you have a model that accommodates your entire experience, the physical body and so on. Whereas for other people, some people, I dare say, probably think this is abstract and philosophical, and that's fine. I wouldn't blame you. I suggest you just don't listen to the conversation. Just rest in your being. It's not necessary for peace and happiness. But for others amongst us, this is not just idle speculation. Our minds just will not rest until all these questions. I was, because you can tell, I'm like that. But many of you are like that too. So it's more philosophical. It's more speculative. It's for some people it goes right to the heart of the matter, and their minds will not rest until they've grappled with these questions. For other people, it's just philosophical and irrelevant. And I understand that. I respect that. I think you're one of the intellectuals. In fact, I know you are. Whenever Benedict put his hands up, I think, oh my goodness, it's Benedict.
Thank you very much.